In the distant reaches of the Sagittarius arm of the Milky Way, where stars were born and died in dazzling spectacles, the human explorer Captain James Couric maneuvered his spacecraft, the Horizon Seeker, through the dense asteroid belt of the Zalara system. His mission was straightforward: map uncharted territories and collect data for the Earth's Galactic Exploration Command. It was during one of his routine scans that the Horizon Seeker's sensors picked up an anomaly. An unidentified spacecraft, evidently damaged, drifted perilously close to a massive asteroid. Its design was unlike anything in the human database, sleek with a shimmering iridescent hull that refracted the starlight, turning it into a kaleidoscope of colors. James, driven by a mix of curiosity and duty, decided to investigate. As he approached, the craft's distress signals became clearer, a series of pulsing beeps that were oddly melodic. He donned his spacesuit, tethered himself to the Horizon Seeker, and floated towards the alien vessel. The closer he got, the more he could see the extent of the damage. It was riddled with what looked like blast marks and deep scratches, evidence of a violent encounter. Entering through a breach in the hull, James found himself in a dimly lit corridor lined with panels of glowing symbols, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. The air was breathable, a surprising fact that suggested a shared atmospheric preference. Or sheer luck. His footsteps echoed softly as he moved deeper into the ship, hand on the blaster at his belt, alert to any signs of danger. Suddenly, a soft moan echoed through the corridors. Following the sound, James came upon a room bathed in a soft blue light. There, lying among the debris of what appeared to be a medical bay, was the alien. She was unlike any creature he had ever seen. Her skin was a luminescent silver, hair flowing and shimmering with its own internal light, eyes large and expressive, reflecting a galaxy of stars. Despite her ethereal appearance, it was clear she was in pain. Beside her, a medical apparatus beeped erratically, its screen flashing red symbols. With no knowledge of her physiology, James hesitated only a moment before gently lifting her head and offering her water from his own supply. To his relief, she drank. Her first words were in a language he couldn't understand, musical and flowing. James tapped his translator device, hoping it could decipher her language. After a moment, her words transformed into a halting English. "Thank you," she said, her voice a whisper of wind through leaves. "You are not of my enemies?" "No, I'm human, from Earth," James replied, his voice steady despite the surrealness of the encounter. "Do you have enemies who did this?" "Many," she replied with a hint of fear in her gaze. "They want what I protect." James nodded, understanding that this was no mere chance encounter, but a meeting that could spiral into complexities he hadn't anticipated. "Let me help you fix your ship. Then you can tell me more." As he worked with the tools from his ship to repair her vessel, the alien watched him with a growing sense of wonder. She introduced herself as Mira of the Alyrian people, a guardian of a powerful artifact that her enemies sought to seize for malevolent purposes. With each passing hour, as they worked side by side under the cold light of distant stars, a bond formed between them, a bond born of shared adversity and the lonely vastness of space. James learned of her world and its troubles, and Mira learned of Earth and its curious inhabitants. By the time the repairs were nearing completion, Mira's strength had returned, and with it, an offer. "Join me," she said, her eyes bright with gratitude and an unspoken emotion. "Help me protect my world, and I will show you wonders beyond your imagination." James, ever the explorer, felt the stirrings of adventure, and perhaps something more, as he considered her proposal. The horizon was about to expand beyond what he had ever imagined, into realms of both space and heart. As they prepared to leave the safety of the repaired ship, the universe awaited their next move, vast and filled with infinite possibilities. James looked at Mira, taking a deep breath, ready to step into a future where the stars were just the beginning. The starlight stretched across the void like silver threads, as the Horizon Seeker and Mira's newly repaired vessel, the Ether Whisper, glided through the nebula clouds of Zalara. Their destination was Alyria, Mira's homeworld, hidden in a nebulous region rarely ventured by spacefarers. The journey was risky, with pirate scans and Imperial patrols frequent in these parts, but the reward of untold alien wonders fueled James's resolve. As they traveled, Mira shared more about the artifact that had caused her so much trouble. It was known as the Star Core, an ancient device capable of manipulating gravitational fields and bending light to create illusions or even cloak entire planets. "It's not just a weapon," Mira explained, her voice tinged with pride and sorrow. "It's a legacy of our ancestors, meant to protect us and guide us." The complexity of the Star Core intrigued James. He'd dealt with alien technology before, but nothing with the theoretical capabilities that Mira described. The potential for such power to fall into the wrong hands made their mission not just urgent, but critical. Their conversation was abruptly interrupted by a distress signal, faint but unmistakable. Mira's eyes widened. "That's an Alyrian beacon," she said, her voice tense. "We must help. It could be my people." Without hesitation, James altered their course, steering towards the source of the signal, deep within an asteroid field that sparkled with frozen ice crystals. The Ether Whisper led the way, its hull shimmering, blending with the surroundings as if part of the starry tapestry itself. They found the Alyrian ship lodged between two massive asteroids, its hull breached and life support systems failing. Together, James and Mira conducted a daring rescue, maneuvering with precision through the hazardous terrain. They managed to extract 3 Alyrians and provide medical aid back aboard the Ether Whisper. The survivors were weak but grateful, and one, an elder named Torin, shared grave news. "The Syndicate has located Alyria. They're planning an invasion to seize the Star Core," Torin said, his voice rasping. "They've hired mercenaries and rallied outlaw factions. It's a force larger than any we've faced." The gravity of the situation settled over the cabin like a dark cloud. Mira looked to James, her resolve hardening. "We need to warn my people and prepare defenses. Maybe with your help we can find a way to use the Star Core to protect Alyria." Back on course to Alyria, James and Mira strategized their approach. Mira's knowledge of Alyrian technology and James's experience with tactical operations formed a formidable team. If we can enhance the cloaking capabilities of the Star Core, we could hide Alyria from the Syndicate long enough to negotiate peace, or failing that, to strike preemptively, James proposed, sketching out a plan on the holo display. As the twin ships sailed through the cosmic sea, evading dark nebulas and rogue comets, James couldn't help but feel a connection not just to Mira, but to her cause. Her world was fighting for survival, much like Earth had centuries ago. The thought of another planet, another civilization, standing on the brink stirred a deep, compelling urge to protect, to defend, to stand with Mira. Arrival at Alyria was imminent, and the plan was set. They would meet with the planet's rulers, present their defense strategy, and prepare for the Syndicate's arrival. The weight of their task was immense, but so were the stakes. As the glowing orb of Alyria came into view, its continents shrouded in mist and its oceans sparkling under the gaze of its twin suns, James felt the surge of destiny. This was more than an adventure. It was a stand against the dark, an affirmation of life and freedom across the stars. Alyria revealed itself through the mist, its cities glowing like constellations on the surface, encircled by protective fields that shimmered against the celestial backdrop. As the Horizon Seeker and Ether Whisper descended through the atmosphere, Mira pointed out landmarks, the Tower of Visions, the Gardens of Scylla, each a testament to her people's culture and technological prowess. Their arrival did not go unnoticed. The planetary defenses, a network of satellites and ground-based ion cannons, tracked their descent, while communications channels buzzed with activity. Mira secured them safe passage, her voice authoritative yet tinged with urgency over the comm. Upon landing, they were greeted by a delegation led by Prime Counselor Varric, a stern figure with the bearing of one who had weathered many storms. His gaze lingered on James with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. "A human," he mused aloud. "We have heard tales of your kind, explorers and warriors." James met his gaze evenly. "Today, I'm here as a friend and ally," he assured, stepping forward to explain their plan against the impending Syndicate threat. The council convened in the Hall of Deliberations, a vast chamber with walls adorned with holographic histories of Alyria. James and Mira presented their strategy, highlighting the enhanced cloaking capabilities of the Star Corps and the tactical deployment of their fleet. Discussions were intense, with some counselors skeptical of relying on alien assistance, while others argued for the necessity of innovation in the face of desperation. While the council deliberated, Mira took James on a tour of the Illyrian capital. The city was a blend of nature and technology, with sprawling parks that floated several meters above the ground and buildings that spiraled elegantly toward the sky, their surfaces covered in a photovoltaic skin that mimicked the shifting patterns of the environment. They visited the Star Corps chamber, the heart of Illyria's defense system. The artifact itself was suspended in a containment field, pulsing with a light that seemed to breathe. Mira explained the principles of its operation, her hands moving gracefully through the holographic interfaces to demonstrate the potential of what they could achieve. As night fell, James and Mira stood on a viewing platform overlooking the city. The twin suns set in a symphony of colors, casting long shadows over the land. "My people are resilient," Mira said, watching the city lights flicker to life. "But even the strongest need allies. I'm grateful you're here." The final council decision was transmitted to them there. Alyria would proceed with their plan. Preparations began at once. Ships were retrofitted with cloaking enhancements, and tactical teams were briefed. James found himself coordinating with Illyrian engineers, their mutual respect for each other's expertise forming the foundation of a rapidly strengthening alliance. The Syndicate's forces were faster than anticipated, their arrival heralded by a scout ship that emerged from a warp gate at the edge of the system. James and Mira were on the command deck of the Ether Whisper as reports came in. "They're early," James noted, tension lining his features. "But we're ready." Mira nodded, her expression resolute. "Let's show them that Alyria stands strong." As the Syndicate fleet appeared in the skies, a silent signal was given, and Alyria vanished from sight, hidden by the Star Corps' power. The Syndicate fleet paused, their confusion evident. James smiled grimly. "Now, we strike." The battle commenced with Illyrian ships phasing into visibility, launching a barrage of ionized plasma. James piloted the Horizon Seeker with precision, leading a squadron against the Syndicate's flank. The space around them erupted with the chaos of combat, the fate of Alyria hanging in the balance, each moment critical as they fought for a future free from fear. The battle raged outside the protective bubble of Illyria's cloaked space. The Syndicate, disoriented by the sudden disappearance of their target, found themselves caught off guard as Illyrian fighters decloaked in a choreographed onslaught of light and energy. Each ship, empowered by the Star Corps' enhancements, moved with an agility that bewildered their adversaries, leaving trails of luminous particles that faded into the dark. In the heart of the conflict, James piloted the Horizon Seeker with a veteran's precision, dodging bursts of plasma fire. Mira, at his side, coordinated their attacks, her voice calm and steady, directing their forces with an innate understanding of the battlefield. Together, they were an unstoppable force, a union of Earth's tenacity and Illyria's grace. On board the Syndicate command ship, the warlord Crawl observed the chaos. His features were hard and brutal, a scar running down the side of his face, a souvenir from a past conflict. "Bring me the Illyrians," he growled, his eyes fixed on the holoscreens showing the cloaked planet. He issued commands rapidly, rerouting power to enhance their sensors, desperate to pierce the veil that hid Alyria. Back on Alyria, in the Star Corps chamber, engineers worked feverishly to maintain the artifact's output. The air was tense, electric with the hum of energy that flowed through the chamber like a living thing. Torin, the elder who had been rescued by James and Mira, watched the energy readings, his experienced eyes searching for any sign of fluctuation. "Steady," he murmured, his hands poised over the controls. "Hold steady." As the battle intensified, a group of Syndicate stealth fighters managed to bypass the main lines, slipping through the Illyrian defenses toward the planet's surface. Their goal was clear: destabilize the cloaking field and expose Alyria to a full assault. Alerted to this new threat, James and Mira quickly formulated a response. "We need to intercept them," Mira declared, her face set with determination. She turned to James. "Can your ship handle a ground operation?" James nodded, his response immediate and confident. "Let's give them a surprise they won't forget." The Horizon Seeker swooped toward Alyria, its engines glowing hot as they entered the atmosphere. James handled the controls with expertise, weaving through the upper clouds, his eyes on the sensor that tracked the approaching Syndicate fighters. On the surface, the Alyrian defense forces readied themselves. Anti-aircraft turrets emerged from hidden silos, locking onto the incoming threats. The battle from space shifted seamlessly to ground, a testament to Alyria's preparedness and the desperate gamble of their enemies. The Syndicate fighters were fast and lethal, but Alyria was their home turf. The Horizon Seeker burst through the cloud cover, its cannons firing in sync with the ground defenses. One by one, the Syndicate ships faltered, taken aback by the fierce resistance. James maneuvered the Horizon Seeker with a daredevil's bravado, pushing the ship to its limits. Mira, monitoring the battle from a console, directed their fire with precision, each target engaged with lethal efficiency. Meanwhile, Krall watched the downfall of his stealth squadron with rising fury. "Focus all fire on breaking their defenses," he ordered his crew. "I want that planet visible and vulnerable." As the final Syndicate fighter spiraled down in flames, a cheer erupted from Alyria's defense command. Mira exchanged a look of relief with James, but her expression remained vigilant. "This isn't over yet," she warned. "Krall won't retreat easily." True to her words, the Syndicate's main fleet, now reorganized and doubly furious, renewed their assault. The stakes were higher, the danger closer. James and Mira returned to their ships, ready to face whatever came next. The battle for Alyria was not just about survival now. It was about defiance, a statement to the galaxy that even the smallest of worlds could stand tall against tyranny. The Syndicate's fleet reformed, a dark cloud amassing at the edge of the system, ready to unleash a storm upon Alyria. Krall, seething with defeat, yet driven by a relentless hunger for the Star Corps' power, commanded his warships forward. They advanced in tight formation, a serpent of metal and malice slithering through the star-strewn battlefield. Aboard the Horizon Seeker, James watched the approaching threat, his jaw set. "We've rattled them, but this will be the real test," he said, glancing at Mira. Her expression was one of grim determination, her mind clearly running through scenarios and strategies. Mira's fingers danced across her console, enhancing their shields with a modulation pattern based on the Star Corps' technology. "We have one advantage," she explained. "They don't understand the full extent of what the Star Corps can do. We'll use that uncertainty." On Alyria's surface, the atmosphere tensed as citizens and soldiers alike prepared for the possibility of a ground invasion. Shelters were secured, and all eyes were skyward, where their fate would be decided. The Syndicate ships unleashed a barrage of plasma torpedoes, bright against the darkness, each one aimed with deadly intent. Alyria's defenses lit up in response, the sky ablaze with countermeasures. Explosions dotted the heavens, each one a temporary star born from conflict. James maneuvered the Horizon Seeker through the chaos, dodging debris and returning fire. Beside him, Mira coordinated with the Alyrian fleet, her commands sinking the defensive efforts into a ballet of tactical precision. Each Alyrian ship moved not just to fight, but to protect, their maneuvers creating a protective web around their hidden world. Meanwhile, on the Syndicate flagship, Krall watched the battle unfold with growing frustration. "Bring us closer," he ordered. "Target their command ship. If we cut the head, the body will die." His eyes were fixed on the Horizon Seeker, recognizing it as the linchpin in the Alyrian defense. As the flagship moved into a more aggressive position, its guns targeting the Horizon Seeker, James spotted the danger. "Hold on!" he warned Mira, as he prepared for an evasive maneuver that would take them spiraling through the enemy's formation. The Horizon Seeker darted forward, narrowly avoiding a barrage that would have obliterated them. In return, James lined up a shot that pierced through the enemy's armor, causing a critical hit that forced the flagship to retreat for repairs. Mira seized the moment, her voice ringing out over the fleet's comm. "Now, All ships, focus fire on the flagship! Drive them back! Illyrian pilots responded in unison, their ships converging on the wounded Leviathan that led the Syndicate's forces. Amidst the fray, a smaller Syndicate craft made a desperate attempt to break through the defenses and aim directly for the planet's surface. Its goal was clear: disrupt the star core directly. James spotted the rogue ship, its trajectory too direct, too determined. "I've got it," he declared, adjusting his own course to intercept. The Horizon Seeker raced towards the interloper, firing a volley that disabled its engines and sent it tumbling harmlessly away from Alyria. The impact was a spectacle of light and sound, a clear message to the remaining Syndicate forces. With their flagship damaged and their morale waning, the Syndicate's resolve began to crumble. Krall, witnessing the ferocity and unity of the Illyrian defense, finally understood the futility of his campaign. "Withdraw," he muttered, his voice a mix of rage and resignation. "This battle is lost." As the Syndicate fleet retreated, a cheer erupted across Illyrian channels, a sound of victory that resonated through ships and on the ground. James and Mira shared a triumphant look, their combined efforts having turned the tide. Alyria had stood strong, protected by the bravery and brilliance of its defenders and their allies. The battle had been fierce, the losses on both sides heavy, but the spirit of Alyria, bolstered by the courage of a lone human and the resolve of a determined alien princess, had proven unbreakable. Their stand against the void was not just a defense, it was a declaration that even in the darkest spaces, light would prevail. After the Syndicate fleet's retreat, the skies above Alyria returned to a peaceful state, the stars once again mere beacons of light rather than the flashpoints of battle. The planet itself, though scarred by conflict, began to heal, its people emerging from shelters to witness the dawn of their liberated world. James and Mira stood on the command deck of the Horizon Seeker, surveying the damage to the fleet and coordinating the recovery efforts. The Illyrians worked with a quiet efficiency, each task performed with a reverence for those who had fallen. The air was thick with the dual sense of triumph and mourning. In the days that followed, Mira led the efforts to fortify Illyria's defenses, determined to prevent any future threats. She worked closely with James, who offered insights from Earth's own history of conflicts and resolutions. Together, they proposed a series of treaties and pacts among nearby star systems, aiming to create a coalition that would stand against the Syndicate and similar threats. The rebuilding phase brought a new sense of purpose to the people of Alyria. As the planet's guardian, Mira felt the weight of her responsibilities more than ever. She often found solace in long discussions with James, who, despite his mission's completion, chose to stay and assist in Illyria's reconstruction. Amidst the debris of war, the engineers discovered fragments of Syndicate technology. These remnants, once threats, were now subjects of study. Illyrian scientists, with James's help, began to integrate aspects of this technology into their own systems, enhancing not just military capabilities, but also their infrastructure and medical facilities. The Star Core, now more than just a mythical protector, became a symbol of Illyrian resilience. Tours of the Star Core chamber were organized for young citizens, who listened with wide eyes as Mira recounted the recent battle, using it as both a lesson in vigilance and a testament to the power of unity. One evening, as Illyria's twin suns set, casting long shadows over the land, Mira and James visited the gardens of Scylla. They walked in silence, each step through the fragrant foliage a moment of reflection on the path they had traveled together. "It's strange," Mira began, her voice a mix of wonder and wistfulness. "I was trained to protect Alyria at all costs, yet I never imagined finding strength in an ally from another world." James smiled, looking over at her. "And I was just charting unknown territories. I didn't expect to find a place that felt like it could be a second home," he replied. His hand brushed hers, a gesture laden with unspoken feelings. Their conversation drifted to dreams of the future, plans for Alyria and Earth, hopes for a galaxy where peace was the norm rather than the exception. Mira spoke of establishing an academy for interstellar studies, and James offered to be the first to teach courses on Earth-style diplomacy and defense. As the stars began to appear, twinkling softly in the darkening sky, they reached a decision that felt like the inevitable conclusion to their shared experiences. They would remain partners, not just in defense, but in the pursuit of a broader understanding between their worlds. The Alyrian Council, recognizing the depth of their princess's relationship with the human, extended an official invitation to James to become an ambassador, a role he accepted with humility and determination. In turn, Mira agreed to visit Earth, to learn and perhaps teach, bridging two cultures with her presence. The challenges ahead were many, but for James and Mira, the promise of tomorrow was bright. Together, they looked out over the gardens, their vision for the future as limitless as the starlit universe above. Their alliance had transcended the battlefield. It was now a beacon of hope, guiding their worlds toward an era of shared peace and prosperity. As the new alliance between Earth and Alyria began to flourish, secrets long buried in the archives of Alyria came to light, revelations that could further solidify or threaten the fragile peace. Mira, now more than a guardian, had become a key figure in the interstellar dialogue. Her role as both a leader and a bridge builder, evident in every council meeting and diplomatic exchange. Meanwhile, James's new position as an ambassador had him delving into the complexities of Illyrian society and politics. He was particularly fascinated by the historical data cores that had been recovered from a derelict sector of the capital, which contained records of ancient Illyrian explorations and interactions with other distant civilizations, some of which were no longer known to the modern galaxy. One evening, as Mira and James were reviewing these records in the Grand Library of the Tower of Visions, they stumbled upon a series of encrypted files labeled only as the First Contact. Intrigued by the potential knowledge these files could hold, they employed decryption techniques gleaned from the Syndicate technology to access them. The files revealed a troubling truth. Alyria had encountered the Syndicate centuries ago, long before this recent conflict. These early encounters were peaceful, focusing on trade and cultural exchange. However, they deteriorated when a faction within the Syndicate sought to exploit Illyrian technology for their own gains. It was this betrayal that led to the initial creation and strategic deployment of the Star Core, not just as a defense mechanism, but as a deterrent. This new understanding of the past cast a shadow over the present. Mira felt a chill as she considered the cyclic nature of conflict. "History is repeating itself," she murmured, her eyes locked on the screen. "And we were almost unprepared." James, reflecting on the Earth's own historical cycles of war and peace, nodded in agreement. "We need to learn from this not just to prevent another invasion, but to understand the undercurrents that drive such conflicts." They decided to present these findings to the Alyrian Council, advocating for a new initiative to study and possibly contact other civilizations mentioned in the archives. Their goal was twofold: preempt any future threats and establish Alyria as a beacon of peace and knowledge sharing in the galaxy. The Council, though initially hesitant, was swayed by Mira's impassioned speech about the importance of transparency and historical awareness. They approved the creation of an Illyrian Galactic Historical Society, with Mira and James as its founding members. Their first mission involved a journey to a neighboring system where ancient Illyrians had established a now abandoned outpost. The outpost, a small planet dotted with the ruins of what once was a vibrant research station, held the potential to provide invaluable insights into the early galactic interactions of Alyria. As they explored the ruins, Mira and James uncovered artifacts and old communication devices that contained logs and messages from other civilizations, some friendly, others cautious, but all a testament to Illyria's once expansive reach across the stars. "This place is a treasure trove of lost knowledge," James exclaimed, carefully examining a device that appeared to be an ancient navigator. "Imagine what we could learn about not only Illyria's history, but also about the cultures they interacted with." Mira, her hands gently brushing the dust from a faded mural depicting an assembly of various alien species, felt a deep connection to her ancestors. "They were explorers and scholars," she said, her voice filled with pride and a hint of sorrow. "We must revive that spirit, not just for Alyria, but for the good of the galaxy." Their findings, once brought back and shared with both Illyrian and Earth authorities, sparked a renewed interest in deep space exploration and cultural diplomacy. The past, with all its shadows and lights, had opened a path forward, a path that promised a future where understanding and cooperation might finally overcome fear and greed. The establishment of the Alyrian Galactic Historical Society marked a new era of interstellar scholarship and diplomacy. Mira and James, with a team of historians, scientists, and diplomats, embarked on a series of expeditions to reconnect with the civilizations detailed in the ancient outposts' logs. Each mission was carefully planned, balancing the curiosity of discovery with the diplomacy needed to foster trust among star systems that had grown isolated or wary of external contact. Their efforts bore fruit when they successfully re-established contact with the Talons, a reclusive but technologically advanced species that had once traded knowledge with Alyria. The Talons, humanoid with iridescent skin that shimmered with their mood, were initially skeptical. However, their historical respect for Alyria, reignited by the outreach, led to fruitful discussions and the exchange of ambassadors. As Mira navigated these delicate interactions, she found herself deeply immersed in the broader implications of their missions. Each successful contact not only expanded Alyria's network of allies, but also brought new technologies and ideas that could benefit her people. She saw these missions as a way to heal old wounds and prevent future conflicts, a vision that she passionately shared in her communications back home. Meanwhile, James focused on understanding the cultural nuances of their new allies. His background in anthropology and his experience as an ambassador allowed him to perceive subtleties in negotiations that proved invaluable. He documented each species' customs, beliefs, and governance, creating comprehensive guides for future diplomatic efforts. One of their most challenging missions involved a return to a system where Illyrian ancestors had left behind a darker legacy. The inhabitants, the Skrell, had faced exploitation from early Illyrian explorers who had coveted the planet's rich mineral resources. The initial meetings were tense, with the Skrell deeply suspicious of Illyrian intentions. Mira approached the situation with humility, openly acknowledging the past misdeeds and offering reparations in the form of technology that could help in the ecological restoration of their world. Her sincere approach slowly changed the Skrell's perception, transforming old resentment into cautious optimism. The signing of a mutual assistance pact was a significant victory, celebrated both on Alyria and among the Skrell, who saw it as a first step towards genuine reconciliation. Back on Alyria, these missions inspired a cultural renaissance. Universities expanded their curricula to include galactic studies, and Mira's speeches and reports were included in educational programs, encouraging young Illyrians to think beyond their planet's borders. Artistic expressions flourished, with new music, literature, and visual arts drawing inspiration from the diverse cultures now connected with Alyria. James, ever the scholar, proposed the creation of an interstellar cultural festival, an event that would rotate among the planets of the newly formed coalition. The festival would celebrate each civilization's art, music, food, and traditions, fostering a deeper understanding among the galaxy's varied inhabitants. As preparations for the first festival began, Mira and James took a moment to reflect on their accomplishments. They stood together in the Hall of Deliberations, now adorned with flags and artifacts from across the galaxy. "This," Mira said, gesturing to the vibrant hall, "is the beginning of a legacy, not just for Alyria, but for all who join us in this endeavor. We're not just sharing knowledge, we're weaving a tapestry of interstellar unity." James nodded, his eyes reflecting the colorful banners. "It's a tapestry that's richer for every thread, every color. Here's to a future where these threads are bound by understanding and respect." Their vision, once a distant dream etched in the stars, was becoming a reality, threading through the cosmos with the promise of peace and shared prosperity. As the festival continued, it became a microcosm of the broader galaxy, brimming with vibrant expressions of culture and delicate political negotiations. Underneath the grand displays and performances, Mira and James found themselves constantly moving among delegates, mediating discussions and soothing tensions that threatened to erupt into open conflict. During one particularly tense session, a debate between the coalition planets and the Shadow Veil representatives escalated. Accusations of cultural assimilation and political domination were levied against the Alyrian-led initiatives. The room was charged with a palpable tension, each delegate's words weighed with centuries of history and suspicion. Mira stood, her presence commanding silence. "This coalition was never intended to diminish us," she began, her voice steady and clear. "It is meant to be our shared space, where no single voice overpowers another, and where no culture is left behind." She proposed the establishment of a Cultural Integrity Council, an entity that would ensure all cultures within the coalition were preserved and respected. This council would have equal representation from all coalition members, including those from the Shadow Veil. James added his support, outlining how such a council could function as both an overseer and a mediator for future conflicts. The idea was met with mixed reactions, but the promise of equitable power sharing began to ease the room's tension. Meanwhile, outside the conference rooms, the festival thrived. Artists shared stages, scientists presented collaborative projects, and children from different worlds played together in the harmony that their elders struggled to achieve. It was this unity, organic and joyful, that gradually influenced the proceedings. On the final day of the festival, the agreement to establish the Cultural Integrity Council was signed. Mira and James watched as each representative placed their seal on the charter. It was a moment of triumph, not just for them, but for the future of interstellar relations. As the festival drew to a close, the space station slowly emptied, leaving behind echoes of laughter and song. Mira and James took a moment to look out at the departing ships, each one carrying a piece of the festival back to their respective worlds. "Do you think we've done enough?" James asked, watching a ship disappear into the warp gate. Mira considered his question, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "We've started something important today," she answered. "Change is like planting a tree. We may not live to sit in its shade, but we have given future generations a place to rest." Their journey together, though fraught with challenges, had sparked a significant shift. The coalition, strengthened by its new structures for dialogue and conflict resolution, was more resilient and unified. Returning to Alyria, Mira and James continued their work, now focusing on implementing the policies set forth by the Cultural Integrity Council. Workshops, exchanges, and conferences became regular events, further weaving the intricate tapestry of interstellar unity. Years later, as they stood once again in the gardens of Scylla, now filled with flora from across the galaxy, James remarked on the profound growth around them. "You know, I used to think of space as a vast, empty place," he mused. Mira smiled, reaching for his hand. "And now?" "Now," he said, squeezing her hand gently. "I see it as a place filled with endless possibilities, like the stars are points of connection, not just light." Their legacy, a beacon of cooperation in the galaxy, would continue to guide not just Alyria but all civilizations towards a future where understanding and unity could flourish amidst the stars.